Hello, this is Crane Johnson, hydrologist with the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, bringing you an update to the 2019 spring breakup outlook for Alaska. We'll take a quick look at snowpack conditions throughout the state and the Yukon Territory. We can see that in Alaska, the real highlights are a near record snowpack through the Koyukuk River Valley, and then where areas we don't have much data on the North Slope and Northwest, we also expect above average snowpack conditions in those areas, including the Seward Peninsula. If we look upstream into the Yukon watershed, we can see that generally the Yukon watershed is below average to well below average snowpack throughout the entire watershed and the Canadian portion. If we look at ice conditions, this map shows accumulated freezing degree days throughout the state. And generally it's a warm map, which means that most areas had fewer than normal freezing degree days. Which usually indicates generally thinner than normal ice. One example would be Bethel with just 54% of the freezing degree days throughout the winter. And this matches well with ice thicknesses measured in early April throughout the state. Very thin ice down in Southwest, trending towards just below average ice thicknesses throughout the center part of the state. Generally, rivers were thinner or well below average, and lakes were closer to the average thickness throughout the center part of the state. One thing we wanted to remind everybody again was think ice safety when you head out. Things you typically did late April probably aren't possible this year with thin ice conditions throughout the state. Recently we had colder temperatures move through most of Alaska, as well as snowfall that moved through central and eastern Alaska. Here's Monday, snowfall conditions through the center and eastern portion of the state, and then Tuesday that continued. And the cooler temperatures combined with the recent snowfalls basically put a pause in the breakup process from late last week through the middle of the middle of this week. And we expect that to change towards the end of this week with warmer temperatures on the way. If we look at temperature trends expected through the next 5 days, April 24th through April 29th, we expect the return to above average temperatures along the west coast of Alaska, and this would include the lower Kuskokwim River as well as the lower Yukon River. And then if we look to the east, we expect to have, in general, below average temperatures through the central and eastern part of the state. And generally, this is a good condition for breakup. We see warmer than normal temperatures along the lower reaches of the river, where the ice has a chance to decay before the warm temperatures reach the upper watershed and start the snowmelt runoff process. If we look into the future, the 6 to 10 day temperature trends ending May 4th, we see that this signal of warmer temperatures on the west coast is expected to continue and possibly grow towards the east. And then the far east, upper Yukon watershed, we can expect likely cooler than normal temperatures to continue. If we look back at our spring flood potential created on April 10th, this is still valid considering current conditions. And that is generally a lower than normal flood threat for the southern portions of the state, including the Kuskokwim River and the Yukon River, and then trending towards a more normal or average flood threat for the Koyukuk River Basin, where we have a near record snowpack, and for the rivers in the north and northwest, including the Sag and the Kobuk. We also note that rivers in the north and the northwest are expecting a higher than normal volume of snowmelt, and that would include the Seward Peninsula, where they have a deeper than normal snowpack for this year. If we look at one recent notable breakup, Dawson City broke up on April 23rd. The tripod went out, and that ties the record for the earliest breakup on date on record in Dawson City. And the picture shows just a typical image for a thermal breakup where we've got a sheet ice has moved out along the lower reaches. We've got an open tributary that's caused an open area where it meets the Yukon River, and then off to the right, we've got a continued open areas along the Yukon River. If we look at breakup dates, the dates that are printed in black show the average breakup date, and then we've got the areas that have already broken up highlighted in red. And we can see that Dawson City broke up on the 23rd. The Tanana River at Nenana broke up on the 14th, which was a record early date. The Koyukuk, or the Kuskokwim River, broke up at Nikolai on March 31st, record early. And the Kuskokwim River at Bethel broke up on April 14th, which was record early. As well as other rivers broke up in South Central. Generally, through the southern portions of the state, including the lower Yukon and upper Yukon, we expect breakup to be on the order of 1 to 3 weeks early. And then for the northern half of the state, we expect breakup to be either on average or slightly early, up to 10 days early for those areas. If we look at our current breakup map, we can see that the breakup continues on the Kuskokwim River with some open areas reported along the middle stretches of the Kuskokwim. McGrath still has ice in place, but we know it's weak ice. South Central, the Yentna and the Skwentna rivers have both broken up in the last week. The Susitna River is either some open or mostly open throughout its entire length. The Copper River is either some open or mostly open throughout its entire length. And then the Tana River is again some open or mostly open throughout its entire length. The Yukon River is still ice covered all the way up through the border, and we know that it broke up recently in Dawson City. There's some open areas upstream of Dawson. And then as we head towards Whitehorse, we see some mostly open areas on the Yukon River. And then rivers to the north, both the Koyukuk, the Kobuk, and the Sag, other northern rivers are still ice covered. If you live out on these rivers, one thing you can expect in the next week or so is our Riverwatch teams to be both on the Kuskokwim and the Yukon rivers, and they'll be providing direct air-to-ground updates on ice conditions in your local area. For more information, please check our website at www.weather.gov/APRFC.